Hey shy people, what is your worst experience? In my high school Spanish class, some kid screamed, "Do you ever talk at me?" in front of the entire class. Super embarrassing at the time, but hilarious to look back on. Edit. For those curious, I said nothing in response. If only I could go back in time. When you talk and people say things like, "Oh, I didn't know you could talk," or "This is the first time I hear you talking." Going to a crowded party with one friend who really wanted to drag you along but then disappears. I was in a group therapy session as a kid, like maybe 14. I really had to go to the bathroom but we weren't allowed to during the session. I was sorta balled up in the center of the room. Not like emotional or anything, just sitting comfortably hugging my knees cause all the spots on the couch were taken. Some girl had just finished telling a story of her abuse. She was crying and there was no other sound. Was sort of that awkward but respectful silence that fills the space when you wanna be supportive but saying anything at all would somehow seem inconsiderate. It was into this yawning void that I farted. I knew it was coming. I'd been staving off the gurgling in my stomach for some time now. I'd broken into a sweat already with the sheer effort of will to delay the inevitable. It was no use. I tried to discreetly shift my weight and maybe muffle the sound. I failed. This was neither silent nor deadly. It effortlessly shattered the silence like sledgehammer versus a Christmas ornament. Another moment of silence swallowed the sound, but it was a void of disbelief. Then some kid yelled as loud as they could, "Jen farted," and the entire room collapsed into helpless laughter while I promptly turned to stone and died on the spot. I am a bit shy when first meeting people, so after getting to know me, I often hear, "When I first met you, I thought you were such a rich, cool." Putting a year's worth of confidence into a job interview, just to be the quiet one after you get the job. The anxiety, dude. Went to a party. Guy I've never met walks up to me, shakes my hand, and says, "Hello. What's your name? Where were you born? Where will you die? What's in between?" Not letting go of my hand the whole time. I completely locked up. Had no idea what to say. While going to college, I interned for the state's largest business development corporation. In a meeting with C-suite executives, the top dog was just making friendly conversation before we got started and asked me what classes I was taking. To set the picture, I am just the pew note taker and would never expect anyone to even notice that I was there, let alone put me on the spot with a long table of successful professionals staring at me. I blacked out. Zero brain function. I mumbled a few inaudible grunts and ums before having no choice but to admit that I couldn't remember. Oh my dog. I wanted to die. The looks of confusion and the awkward century that it took to switch topics amongst themselves still haunts me before bed. Starts college more than doesn't make friends more than lockdown more than it's ducked. My shy buddy hated ordering coffee at the Starbucks in the Barnes & Noble bookstore. They cannot accept your order and take your money. They had about 6 questions they have to ask first. She couldn't stand it. Her. "I'd like a medium coffee." Them. "Do you want light roast or dark roast?" "We don't have medium. We have tall." "Okay. Do you need space or cream?" "What's your name? Are you part of the bookstore club? Are you part of the Starbucks points?" I'm not sure if I'm remembering it right, but I think at least once she panicked and walked away mid-interrogation. I was in elementary and took a bus home each day. I missed my stop and I was so terribly shy and quiet the bus driver didn't hear me. He went on to pick up high school students and didn't notice I was still on the bus. The high school students were so sweet and kind. They alerted the bus driver and he took me home. My mom was freaking out by the time I got home. Mandatory speech class when I was a freshman in college. I'd do the thing, then go back to my dorm and throw up. Really freaked out my roommate, who I barely spoke to. 5 speeches that semester. It was a nightmare. Being told to lower your voice and shut up as a child. Then as a teen being told to speak up for myself more and answer when I am asked something. Then growing up never speaking unless spoken to, or in case of emergency. As a shy girl I only talked when my friends did. I also didn't go to my teacher when I accidentally smashed my thumb with a hammer for a class project. Since I was trying my best to be quiet and not disturb anyone, I realized no one noticed I smashed my thumb up. So after recovering from almost fainting at the sight of my blood oozing out, I walked up to the teacher so I wouldn't bother anyone else and asked her if she had a first aid kit. She said of course. Why? Did you hurt yourself? And I just showed her my thumb, dripping with broken skin, and said, kinda. She was shocked I hadn't screamed or said anything for a good 10 minutes and immediately set off to get the first aid and help dress my injury. She knew I was quiet and shy, though I think it surprised her to realize to what extent. I figured I needed some help, and I absolutely had to ask, because my tiny first aid kit was only meant for paper cuts and small scrapes. Long story short, I was too shy to draw attention to my pain, and had to gather the courage and breath to ask for assistance. Edit. Wow, I didn't expect this to get a ton of attention. Thanks everyone. I'm glad many of you found it relatable and I was able to share something you all understand and sympathize with. I appreciate it, fellow shy folks. Nah. Okay everyone. Before we begin, why don't we go around the room and tell us a little about yourselves? Graduating basic training and having to walk across the stage. Stop at the mic. Execute a left-faced turn. State my name in the mic with a short pause between first and last name as a cue for the next row of guys to walk up. I completely ducked it up in front of everyone. Went to shake my drill sergeant's hand as a formality of the ceremony and he whispered to me, way to duck that up in front of everyone. Dip it. Duck off back to your seat. I ducking hate public speaking. I was at a friend's house. His parents used to scare me. The dad had a thick Asian accent and due to my nerves, I guess I wasn't paying attention. Didn't realize the dad was full on asking how I was, and I just stood there awkwardly. I thought he was speaking to his son in Cantonese. I still think about this. I never corrected my boss when she mixed up my name on the first day. I had already introduced myself to some people by my real name. The other half of people my boss introduced me to called me another. I felt too shy to correct her in front of the group. It just led to more awkward conversations, as the two names were completely different. I decided to be brave at a college picnic for students in the pharmacy program. All the tables were occupied, so I confidently went up to a table with a bunch of people and asked if I could join them, and I immediately sat down. No one said a word to me. Not one word. I ate as fast as possible and went home and cried. Duck those assholes. Edit. It was a picnic to welcome back students. All the tables were full, and I had a plate full of food. My options were to pick a random group of people, or try to stand up while eating salad and whatnot, or dump my plate and just go home. In retrospect, I should have picked option number 3, but at the very minimum the people I sat with could have made an effort to be polite. My by far worst experience was living together with a roommate. I wasn't able to talk to them and I thought they hate me. Sat at the back of the class in Spanish when the teacher from the front asks a question. Being the little nerd I was in school, my hand shot up. The teacher then looked over, pointed directly at me and said, "Si, señorita." I was a very feminine, underdeveloped and late through puberty 15-year-old boy with longer than usual hair. I stopped answering any teacher's questions willingly from that point. I hate video calls. I was going to drive 1.5 hours to my college to talk to a professor in person instead of just video calling to follow up on something. Someone took my order from the shelf at the online order station at Chipotle and I waited 45 minutes after the time it was supposed to be done before saying anything because I didn't want to be rude. Not the little worst thing to happen to me, but it is what stopped me from going to Chipotle. My husband got me to go to a party with him at our friend's house. Got there. Friend hugged me hello, and then said, "Wow, you smell really good," and then I swear to God everyone got up and went. I want to smell, and I was surrounded by people sniffing me seconds after walking into a party. I wanted to die. It wasn't even perfume or anything, it was my hair oil. If I could afford therapy this would definitely come up. I was having coffee with a friend one day. We had just been to the gym, so I thought I was looking pretty disheveled. But maybe not, because a guy came up to us and slid me a piece of paper with his number on it. He said he had seen me while driving by and thought I was beautiful and just had to stop and say hello. I was so caught off guard and just naturally awkward around strangers period, that the only thing I could blurt out was, "If you think I'm cute now you should see me when I've bathed." He walked away. My friend laughed. I was embarrassed for days. Had a high school buddy who was sworn to silence to most people, even teachers. Yet a select few kids he'd talk to. Funniest guy I've ever met. Said he's gone full years without saying a word to his own teachers. Wow, thanks for the upvotes and responses. I didn't think this would get attention. We would get on Xbox and play with him and he'd be the loudest and smack talk everyone. Really cool guy, wish I kept in touch. I posted here a second ago but I changed my mind. This was worse. In high school biology, we were doing frog dissections. I got put in a group with a bunch of boys who kept teasing me the whole time. I was the only girl. They made me go clean out the tray at the end of class. There was a long line because there was one sink in the back of the classroom. Because I was in a group of morons who would rather goof off. I was the only girl in a group full of boys who acted like frat boys. I was last in line. The boy in front of me kept trying to chat me up. I responded tersely because he had this smug look on his face. He kept looking back at me and washed his tray and instruments very slowly. As soon as he's done, the bell rings. Then the teacher said no one can leave until I finish cleaning my tray. She saw the kid in front of me. BTW. She was still punishing me for IDK what reason. Everyone predictably started screaming at me to hurry up. I ended up bawling while cleaning as fast as I could. Boys in the back of the room started laughing at me. I turned to the teacher, face full of tears, and begged her to let the class go. I would stay as long as it took to get done. She crossed her arms and smirked at me. I managed to finish quickly, but I was still sobbing on the way out. I ended up being 1 minute late to the next class, but thankfully that teacher didn't punish me. She saw I was in tears and asked what happened. I was blubbering too much to make much sense. So she gave me a mini Zen garden to play with outside and told me to calm down as long as I needed to. A week later, my friend told me she heard girls from my class talking it about me and saying it was embarrassing that I cried. She told them to shut the duck up. Weirdly enough, that teacher was nice to me for the rest of the semester and I even got an A in the class. She asked me to join the science club. She was the club advisor in following years and always smiled when she saw me. I have no idea what the actual duck happened or why she treated me like that. I did end up being able to articulate what happened for my next period teacher after that H's class. That teacher had several decades of seniority, so it's possible she complained to the administration and got that teacher in hot water or something, which is why she was nicer. However, I wouldn't know for sure. I started high school after having been cooped up at home for 6 months recovering from spine surgery for scoliosis. I was really unsocialized when I started school that September, and had to force myself to do things that involved talking to people I didn't know. I'd set little daily goals for myself until I got used to it again. It was painful. I imagine much of the world will feel this way when isolation ends though. One of the popular girls liked me. I was too shy to do anything about it. Having a group of people sing "So Happy Birthday to You." I'm not shy, but I'm one of those only talk when necessary types. I tell new people that I'm not shy and I am a low energy person, so I'm always this mellow. There is nothing wrong with not having the energy of a 10-year-old who drank 3 Red Bulls. People do seem to take things I say more seriously than others. People are different in that. Worst experiences are probably the people that talk about you right next to you, assuming you don't have a backbone. Worst one was probably when someone said, "Why don't you talk?" and I just shrugged, but they didn't get the joke and actually thought I was mute. Having to explain our project in a seminar when the one who had to do the task didn't turn up was really shaking in the process. The worst part of being shy is that other PPL pass you over. You know, those situations when a teacher, waiter, employee says something. You answer and they don't hear you because you didn't yell it through the room like the most PPL do. Hated that totally. I seems like many PPL pretend you are not there if you don't talk that much. That's disgusting. They literally forget that you exists. Well, sorry, but I hate being loud. Entering a new place for the first time, be it a shop or a bar or a restaurant, I'm always play the gentleman and hold the door open for my partner so she can assess the area before I sheepishly shuffle in behind. I ducking hate the first day of every class the teacher does the stupid let's do the icebreaker and go around the class and have everyone say a fun fact about yourself. God, I ducking hate that it. Whenever I have to talk up front at school, but I actually speak loud enough. I just don't like looking at the people. I'm a really shy person, not so much online, and definitely not shy with my friends. When anyone says see we are you quiet. Best man speech in front of 100 plus people. I knew it was coming almost a full year in advance and agonized over it for basically that entire year leading up to it. I recited it at least 1,000 times in my head. It was sheer terror when I went up to do it. That said, in the end, somehow, I actually did pretty well with it. I received a lot of compliments and they seemed genuine. So the experience itself wasn't the worst. Maybe just the time leading up to it. Not really as shy anymore cause I think I just don't give a duck anymore, but when masks first were required I kinda felt hidden. Then when I had to go in public where masks weren't required or show my face without it I felt kinda vulnerable for some reason. I was far worse as a child. In 5th or 6th grade, I would get bused to a learning center once a week for a gifted program. My very first day, we were supposed to get up and talk about a painting the class had been discussing. I have always had a really quiet voice, I still do, and on top of that I was pants-hittingly terrified of new environments and speaking in front of a class. I had barely gotten a word out and the teacher yelled at the top of her lungs, "This is not for you," and railed on about how I needed to speak louder. The class was not just for me, I was selfish, etc. So then I tried to finish with my voice shaking, my heart in my throat, and fighting the tears that were forming so I wouldn't also be the quiet, nerdy kid that cried in front of the class. I'm in my 40s now and not nearly as shy, socially terrified as I was then, but I still remember it, and that feeling, clearly. My birthday happened during vacation from school and I never failed a subject, so I didn't celebrate with my class before. Until my senior year in college where we got vacation classes in preparation for the board exams. It was a joint class of 2 sections and our class president took it upon herself to surprise me. Boy was I surprised. I was sitting in front of the class as always, designated seats, and the president announced it and the whole room sang happy birthday to me. I am not kidding when I say I sank in my chair until half my upper body was gone and wished the ground would swallow me whole. I went to this summer camp at a history museum around 4th grade. The second day they sprung on us that we would have to create a short play about a notable figure of our choice. I'm already terrified and I make it worse by choosing to do mine on Kalun, the dude who invented paper. The play ended up being a 30-second monologue that was basically a condensed biography with me wearing these musty silk robes. After I slunk back to my seat, I realized that everyone else did like actual plays with dialogue and plots and stuff. So embarrassing. Oh, this time was bad. I was on my very first date, and I hung out in his bedroom. Then I needed the toilet. I pulled off 3 sheets, but the bit I left had a tear in it, and I thought I'd look like a vandal or something if I left it. So I tore another piece. This also left a tear in the remaining piece, so I did it again. I ended up using half the roll just because I was too awkward to leave a tear in the toilet paper. Not a single experience, more like an ongoing one. Shyness keeps you from making friends as easily. As such, you're often forgotten about. I'm not part of any cliques, any groups, never invited to anything, and overlooked by people I consider friends. I've spent time with these people on my birthday, during different celebrations and events, and I'm still not part of the group. Like, I don't know if I'm just off-putting because I'm shy or if they just genuinely don't like me for me. Unless I can give them something somehow. I get a smile and a wave. That's it. Never anything more. Oftentimes less. Largely due to the fact that I am unable to properly make friends with anyone. Any group beyond a couple of people makes me close down because I simply don't know what to do in a group setting. My worst experience? Existing. Teacher spent 30 minutes harassing me for being too feminine for a guy. I remember I was crying while everyone else was laughing at me. Opening up to the wrong people when you make a life-changing decision. I was super shy when I was little. My mom would constantly tell me that everyone thought I was rude for hiding behind her and not speaking. It made it 1000x worse because then I assumed everyone thought I was a terrible person and everyone hated me. Very shy in middle school, and at middle school graduation, they called my older sister's name during the ceremony. I was mortified. For perspective, my sister graduated 7 years before, and to make it worse they did it twice while presenting an award I had worked hard for. In middle school I didn't have any friends in my scheduled lunch period, so I had to find some people I sorta knew to sit with. It went well for a while until this one girl just started being extremely rude. She would just randomly start picking apart the way I look to someone else sitting at the table out of nowhere, and I would just keep my head down and eat and pretend like I didn't hear anything she would say. I'm a decent looking female, but it really did a number on my self-esteem. Duck you, Jonna. I don't talk much in class, and I interact with only a few people. Some of my classmates just thought I hate them, and cropped me out of their EOY class photos, which they then posted on IG. I don't really care about their posts. I just felt really hurt they cropped me out. Realizing I must interact with people. The first time I decided to speak up in class, a person who had been harassing me yelled out, "EWW, that's what you sound like. For the sake of our ears, you should probably just never speak again." Not so long ago, a group of girls in my school heard and spread a rumor in my school that I was dating multiple people, and the rumor got around to another group of girls that I call the gossip group. At lunch, the gossip group, who had around 5-10 girls, came up to me and started asking questions like, "Who are you dating and are you a WH3?" I ignored them for some time, but eventuality they cornered me, and me being the anxious person I am had a mental and emotional breakdown right there and then. Not one of my best moments. I would also like to clarify that one of these girls used to bully me for my race back when I was about 5-8. After reading some of the answers, I just want to lay down that a lot of people confuse shyness with social anxiety. Being a little shy isn't wrong. It's just a personality trait. But being as socially anxious as to not being able to interact with other beings without panicking is definitely going to damage you a lot. If you're dealing with the latter, I definitely encourage you to go therapy. Social anxiety is relatively easy to treat. Interacting with other people isn't meant to be a stride. Back in 7th grade, I forgot a pencil and didn't have the courage to get up and ask for one. I finally got the courage, but my teacher doesn't keep pencils on him. So he told me to go to another classroom and ask for one. Me being me, a shy, socially awkward teenager, didn't get up and just sat there. He kept getting louder and more aggressive, telling me to go get a pencil from another classroom, to the point where I actually started crying. Yes, crying. In school, in class, in front of all my classmates. Eventually, he got up, walked me outside the classroom, talked to me. I can't remember what he said, but he comforted me and went into another classroom to get me a pencil. Still my worst memory there, but he was a great teacher. When I was about 8 years old, my teacher asked me a question. I was really scared of public speaking, but I did know the answer, so I told her. She said something along the lines of, "Wow guys." Student gave an answer out loud and told them to applaud. I am 24 and still start shaking when a teacher asks me a question. In college, my professors just love giving us projects that end up with class presentation. I told the professor how I hate speaking in front of people cause I'm shy, awkward, stuttering my words when nervous. He said, "Try your best." The week of, he sent out an email that said, "It's Brenna's favorite part, the speaking part. Gee thanks." A lot of my friends and my girlfriend have told me they thought I was really weird, annoying, rude, etc. upon first meeting me due to my bad social skills. I hate this so much when I think about all the relationships I've missed out on due to people making assumptions about me because of it. Being alone on graduation day all dressed up, : Thankfully my dad was there so it was bearable.